Non-Monogamy, A Beginner's Guide Part 2. Please like and subscribe. Remember, your belief systems are your own, and you alone are responsible for them.
So this is part 2 of a video I started about beginner's guides and non-monogamy, a beginner's guide. And I would include open relationships. I talked about expectations of society and how they're often wrong. And one expectation within marriage is monogamy. And it doesn't seem like it's followed very often. It's encouraged, and I can understand that, but it's not followed. It has stages. It has what they call the 7-year itch, which was Marilyn Monroe movie made the expression famous, but between 7 and 10 years, it seems like there's a increase in divorces for infidelity. The second one is the empty nest syndrome, where the couple have their children gone, and that was what they majorly had in common. They majorly had as an interest, and their conversations centered around and their concerns. And the third is called the silver time period, a silver relationship, where they are about over 50, and no insult to people under 50, but it's over 50, and you're looking at retirement in the lighter part of your years and excitement in sexual matters. So that's the third time in which divorces seem to happen. I'm certain that you also look at if you're going to be happy the rest of your life. And that has a lot to do with that third episode in human beings. So to just define some terms so that we understand what we're all talking about. Ethical non-monogamy means you agree as a couple that you're going to not be sexually involved with just each other. Non-monogamy means you're going to be sexually involved with others in your relationship, and it's consensual. That's called ethical non-monogamy. Unethical non-monogamy, called cheating or whatever you want to call it, is where you don't agree, where one partner or the other doesn't know it. There's serial non-monogamy, which means multiple divorces, and you'll see couples where they end after every 10 years or 5 years, or whatever the time period, and you'll see they'll have 4 and 5 divorces in their lifetime. And I knew one couple that had 8 divorces. They remarried each other 4 times, and the other 4 were other people. So that's kind of funny, but that's serial non-monogamy. Multiple divorces, and they still consider themselves monogamous, oddly enough, but they're taking the patterns and they're changing their mates instead of being honest about their sexual interests and their interests in relationships. So ethical non-monogamy swinging and polyamory. Now, polyamory is another term that you might want to know. It means basically you're in love with another couple, where swinging usually means that you can be friends with benefits, they call it, but friends. And swinging usually, or you can be a one-night stand, they call it, which means you do it one night and then you don't do it again. And so those are kind of the two sides of the swinging lifestyle. Now, polyamory is different in the fact that you're looking for someone to love, someone to bring into your relationship, not as a primary, not to replace your wife or husband, but to add to it, like adding a new flavor to the food. So you have a bowl of vegetables, and your vegetables are your marriage, and it just spices it up both ways, spices it up. But we're not talking about trying to find a replacement. In fact, that's very looked down upon in these two lifestyles. So there's the mirror effect, and the mirror effect is an idea where you go up to an emotional mirror and you look at that mirror and you think to yourself, what am I really? Who am I really? What am I looking for really? And you're honest in that mirror to yourself, because it's only you watching. And so you can change the person in the mirror if that's what you're looking towards, or you can keep the person the same. But at least you're honest with yourself, because you can't be honest with somebody else if you're not honest with other people. So I talked about monogamy being a failed model, and that's what I found out, is that a lot of these ideas in psychology come from these models from the 1940s and 50s, oddly enough, and the models actually are changing. What models of human behavior, it's called, and models of happiness, and they're changing over the generations, and the recent ones have some interesting ideas to them. But those models are what's considered normalcy in social behaviors. And so a lot of older psychologists, a lot of people who are taught an older brand of psychology or therapy or counseling, don't think of the swinging lifestyle or polyamory as normal or can lead to happiness. And in fact, the surveys say that those who are already happy in their marriage are happier after they're been swinging. So it goes through different time periods in your life. One of the interesting things is the newer generations are not considering marriage, and you can't tell by the beginning of a generation what their middle and end's going to be, so you can't really tell whether they if they plan to get married or they plan not to. They plan to have children or they plan not to. Some of the earlier generations are getting married late, and having children late, in their 40s and 50s or whatever, 30s sometimes. And it used to be in the older generations they would get married in their 20s, and then you'd have the 7 years, and they'd be doing on their second marriage in their 30s, and so it was kind of like a pattern of early start, and that pattern seems to have changed. More and more, the younger ones talk about, by younger I mean under the 50-year-old, or under the 30-year-old, or under the 20-year-old. They're having relationships that are not based on monogamy, and that's an interesting choice to say, monogamy didn't work for my parents. My father left my mother, and my mother left my father. They were cheating on each other, and they were unhappy in their marriage because of communication issues or whatever. So now, and they're not looking at being with one person, which is an interesting change. So I'm going to do a post-COVID changes video, but it's an interesting idea that they are not really looking the same way at relationships. They don't about their jobs either, and I plan to do a series on that too, but that's an interesting thing to think about. So I put warnings in these. Be careful how you address these ideas. And let's go back to the mirror metaphor. You may be okay with an open relationship, and I'm talking to the women and the men because this happens with both. And you may be okay with it, but your partner might not be able to have that idea. And so you need to word this carefully and communicate this carefully, and knowing your partner. And nobody else can take responsibility if you choose to. But in the groups we're in, the most common question is how do you talk to your husband or your wife about this subject? And the real answer is extremely carefully, because some people take this as a deal ender. So you need to be careful about this subject. I'm trying to give trigger warnings and warnings all over this, so people know that they have to be careful. So you need to be careful. The second thing is that these choices are yours. You can't blame other people if the choices turn out bad. If you think, oh man, I got a great relationship with my husband, I'm going to tell him what I'm thinking. Well, some husbands don't like it. Perception is guys would like it. Not all guys like it. So you need to really be careful about what you choose to do. I don't really believe in a society where people can blame other people for what they do. And so this is really a warning that you need to be careful. The other thing, too, is it adds a great deal to the relationship. It adds a communication that's unparalleled in relationships. And I would put a warning here that that communication can be brutal. Brutal in a good way and brutal in a bad way, so don't have really easily offended feelings. You know, and I'm going to say this throughout my videos, so people that are overly sensitive, it's a form of bullying. So you just need to remember that you don't want to bully other people by being overly sensitive, and you don't want to be callous with other people's feelings. You have to address them and talk about them. But that's a sign of a good relationship, is when you're careful about your partner and don't assume just because they're guys they're going to be happy with this idea. So anyway, that's where at the end of this video. Thank you, and you have a great day.
Please like and subscribe.